Afrofuturism. This session is Blacks in Philanthropy. This timely conversation regarding how money is raised for nonprofits, how the Black community participates in the raising of those things, the points of view that people have about Blacks in philanthropy, and then some conversation about where dollars actually go in philanthropy. And our panel will, of course, elaborate on any one or all of those things. My name is Carl Lavender, and I'm the interim chief equity officer of the city of St. Petersburg, and it's my privilege and pleasure to be here amongst you. And on our panel this evening, we have, and I'll let them speak in a minute, but first let me say hi to Leigh Davis, who is the Director of Donor and Advisor Relations at the Community Foundation. Christoper Hackney, SVP, Director of SBA Lending at BayFirst National Bank. Anysia McDowall, Principal in Polestar Philanthropy, former VP of Investor Relations and Tampa Bay Economic Development Council. And of course, Diva, Terri Scott, the director of the Woodson Museum, right here in good old St. Petersburg. Now, we have reached across the nation to Canada. We have our first international guest here on the panel, and I'm going to take the mic to him.
Leigh Van Appenport, Toronto, Canada, and with the Foundation for Black Communities.
Welcome. And tell us a little bit why philanthropy, of course, is important to you.
I am deeply grateful to join you this evening. My name is Lipsey McDowall. I am so honored to be invited to be a part of this panel. I am the daughter of Joyce Muhammad Welch, the daughter of Beatrice Muhammad and Heavenly Mother Nero Mallory. I stand on the shoulders of these great and formidable women who are not only the matriarchs in our family, they were my teachers of philanthropy in the highest forms to my brothers and sisters and I have joyfully, resiliently, and sometimes tearfully spent the last 2 decades of my career in modern-day Western philanthropic work from the U.S. to the Caribbean. It is with intention that I have shared tearfully because throughout my career, I was both the anomaly and many times the only. Thankfully, this is changing in our sector. My understanding and study of philanthropy, AKA charity, AKA giving, AKA impactful investing, AKA donating, loving and helping thy neighbor as it is humanity in the highest form. As you can hear, there are many names for philanthropy as there are cultures throughout our world. And it is worth noting that all cultures in society have some structure and practice of giving to support one another. I learned about philanthropy, as I shared, from my mothers, from the church, volunteerism, and finally through the African practice of wealth building as a collective called the Susu. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that for me, that collective giving was how we funded so much from the Caribbean to the U.S. So I'm delighted to be here again. Thank you for indulging me those moments to share those words with you.
Very good, thank you. Next, Christoper.
Chris Hackney, I'm a Senior Vice President at BayFirst National Bank. And the reason I'm here, besides Terri, Lipsey, Scott, so I always take an invitation of my mission as a Black man is to change the perception and perspective of the Black male. And when you think about philanthropy, the first thing that comes to your mind is probably not a Black male. It's probably some affluent figure, older person, billionaire type. You don't think about young Black men. So I want today to kind of dispel some of the myths and make sure that we know that it's feasible, it's reasonable, and it's our responsibility to change our perspective on philanthropy and change others' perception of what a philanthropist is. When people think of philanthropy, they should think of this room, not Warren Buffett, no disrespect to Warren Buffett, but it should be the people in this room and how collectively we can do just as much as that one man can do. But notice I said collectively, right? So it can't just be one of us that's writing the check to Terri Scott, right? All of us writing the checks to Terri Lipsey Scott can be the equivalent of a Warren Buffett and the impact of a Warren Buffett because it matters more to us For those types that typically are the philanthropists, the reason they're doing it is tax implications. It's just a drop in the bucket to them. I'm in banking. The things that we sponsor at our community bank, we attend. We can't sponsor something without attending that event. And many of you that have sponsored events, I've been there. Other corporate large banks, they have a goal to hit. They'll write a check and never show up. Now the dollars matter, but the presence and them being on site, that's what matters, the engagement with the people there. So I'm here, and hopefully at the end of this conversation, we feel more confident that our people, the people in this room, are philanthropists just as much as what other people think a philanthropist should look like.
Thank you, Christoper.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Leigh Davis. I am the former Director of Donor and Advisor Relations with Pinellas Community Foundation, and I am a chartered advisor of philanthropy through the American College of Financial Services. There are about 3,000 total CAPS, chartered advisors of philanthropy, in the United States, and up until about 8 years ago, less than 4% of them were people of color. So under my teacher, Deanne Ewan, she started an Advisors of Color cohort that has since graduated 300 CAPS of color, realizing that philanthropy is something that is very deeply personal. And if you don't have someone who's not necessarily looking like you, but understanding your background, what philanthropy is, it's very different to white people, to Asian people. So to have people who are actually representative of you as your advisor in philanthropy is critical to growing the idea of philanthropy. And we need to all assume the role that we are philanthropists. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. For me, philanthropy is the love of humanity. Philanthropy, if you break it down, the Greek word is the word philos, meaning love, and then anthropos, meaning man or humanity. So philanthropy is simply the love of humanity. For me, it is the love of community. And having lived in 12 different states, it is a way for me to develop my community in each area that I live in and move to. So I'm grateful to be here talking a little bit more about the tools of philanthropy and really encouraging all of us to embrace that we are philanthropists.
Thank you, Leigh. Now, Terri Lipsey-Scott.
Good evening, everyone. I am Terri Lipsey-Scott, Executive Director here at the Woodson African American Museum in Florida. When I was invited to be a part of this panel, I couldn't imagine why. But as I began really delving into what philanthropy is, I was a philanthropist. And with that, I'm excited for you to have a greater sense of understanding of what philanthropy even looks like. Because so often we only associate philanthropy with money. We want all of us to be looking at that differently as well. Our time and our talent, we can often put a value to it. So with that, knowing how limited I am in this space, the best thing you can do is recruit others. And that's why my friend. I met this gentleman last night here. He's a Canadian, and his wealth of experience in this area just exceeds anything that I've ever heard of. So with that, I'm excited to welcome my friend, the Shins.
I have the misfortune of following these four fantastic people. And had I known, I would have sat up front. I heard Don first. First of all, I give you the greeting of your son and we speak. I'm incredibly honored to be, frankly, if I can say so, Black people. My colleagues and I come from Toronto, Canada, Montreal, and many other places. And these rooms are far and deep between us. So I feel the joy of having watched this incredible performance. And I also feel the incredible warmth of those in this room. So I want to say thank you for inviting this. I don't know if these folks here all that well, but I look forward to the conversation. What I will say to you is, I don't believe in altruism. I don't believe in appealing to morality. I believe in feeling of justice. I think that when I talk about philanthropy, I've never given, I've only returned. I think it's really important to understand that. I didn't change my own diaper. I didn't feed myself. I didn't build the home that I grew up in. I didn't go to the road that I drove in every single day. And often I didn't work with the business that I first gave me my first job. Those are all things that came before me that I benefited from, and the responsibility I have is to return back to the positive people. So I want to talk about philanthropy, but I also want to talk about Woodson. The idea, the principle that is core to the existence of all Black life, and that is, I am because you are, that you are because I am, and that we are. And so I want to talk more about that as the basis of philanthropy and the work that we do to that issue to Black communities. And I'll mention in one sentence what that is. We're the single and only Black-led focused philanthropic foundation in Canada. We started only 3 years ago. The history of Black people exceeds 300 years. And so I'll talk about how that's changing us, what the goals are, what the vision, more importantly, why we don't see it as an effort in Canada, but why we see that as the work of Black people across this land called Terri.
You heard from the panel, and we're going to get to a Q&A in a minute, but while in this thread, I want to acknowledge the audience, several people. First and foremost, the First Lady of our city of St. Petersburg, Madam Donna Welch. There also are some philanthropic organizations in the audience. I see my dear friend Brittany Frazier from the Allegheny Foundation. And then the gentleman from the Arts Council of Florida right here. Maybe there are any other foundation or philanthropic organizations in the room to be acknowledged. There's time for Q&A later, but I want to say hello to. The record will show that there is approximately $11 billion raised by Black America in support of philanthropic efforts, nonprofit organizations, hospitals, universities, museums, 11 billion. As a matter of fact, when you look at the number and compare it to white America, it is substantial. When you look at the size of our population in America and the assets that we have available to be able to do that kind of giving. And yet there is the concern that only about 8% of philanthropic dollars come to Black and Brown-led organizations as recipients of so many billions of dollars. So what is the hurdle?
I can't tell you about why the American foundations are not giving, but I have a pretty good idea. Well, I don't care about Black people. In 2020, the Foundation for Black Communities wrote a report called the Unfunded Report. Super easy, unfunded, Google it. It found that for every $100 that foundations did, only 7 cents was going to Black communities in Canada. I want to be clear, I didn't say 7 cents out of every dollar. 7 cents out of every $100. And that 7 cents was by accident. And so the question for us was why? So we mapped every single foundation, how much money they had. And we found that every one of their boards looked one way. And a friend of mine once said, you're not at the table, you're on the menu. For us, it feels like we're always being served. And by folks that should be in service of us, right? So one of the things that I'd love to talk about, and I promised you yesterday that we would be here at service to you, is we'd love to share the tactics we use to get the federal government not only recognize this problem, but then to commit a historic $200 million to establish. The research came first. Anecdotes are one thing, numbers are another. And so one of the things that I would love to talk about is how can we help, how can the Foundation for Black Communities help? I don't mean this in some like help you with credit. I'm just talking about just like conversation, anything that you might need to help really make clear this problem. And frankly, your colleagues have already done a lot of that work in the very similar report came out actually 6 months before we did that looked at American giving, not the Black organizations, that found very similar rates. But a few of those reasons are number one, like, Black organizations are not always 501c3s. Because you're not 501c3s, I apologize. This is not my job to lecture the group. I'm sure that Leigh and others can be fine. So let me give the space to you. Are you sure?
Absolutely.
I imagine that because you're not 501c3s, you're not able to get the tax receiving dollars. But the truth of the matter is we're trying to solve some of the most complex problems. And they're often emergent, they're rapid. And we're not looking to make money off of our work. So we're not thinking about established organizations that conform to the way that capital moves. But maybe we should be. Maybe we should come out before we start doing the work and think about what is the structure required for that work to be done. Other communities have, and they benefit from it because it then enables them to attract. The public dollars are entitled to. Our work is important. It doesn't need to be done for free, and it can be funded. So one of the things that I saw was a gap in Canada as well. We didn't have Black lawyers who were truly literate in helping us set up charities, helping lead the financial folks. We're going to make sure that we have financial regulation to ensure that we maintain those. And then the third thing is we need to give more love to Black fundraisers. It's not only about wanting the money. There's a really interesting system that I think my colleagues will comment about later. But fundraisers are the heartbeat of philanthropy, connecting and serving as interlocutors between those who have capital and those who need it. The challenge is, if we don't use them, they don't get paid. Then they often end up leaving for going elsewhere. So those are 3 things I have found are good reasons we're not getting it. We don't have the right financial or organizational capabilities. We don't often have the folks that can help us set those up. And number 3, folks who could be possibly fundraising for us aren't connected. But that often results, as I said, as us trying to solve complex issues. We need to show timelines right away. People are suffering. We're not thinking about money. We're thinking about what can we do now. And we deserve the right to breathe, pause, and say, what do I need to do in order to help?
We still have to sponsor that, please, share.
And thank you, brother, for sharing all that, and thank you for the shout out to fundraisers as a volunteer fundraiser. I think, one of my experiences throughout my career was this theory of white saviorism. For any of you that are familiar with organizations that come into communities to help address our problem, but truly don't take the time to get to know the community or talk with some of the community members that are already embedded in the community, doing the work, the churches, the mothers, and so on and so forth. So I think, you asked about the hurdles. The hurdles are, number one, donors and organizations that want to help to address social issues, truly taking the time to understand and listen. And then for those organizations to have fundraisers or leaders that look like the people that they want to serve. That is critical to understanding a community and a life.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well said. Leigh, in that initial opening of my question, people got a little nervous. Terri said, I'm raising money, but I'm not going to say much more about it. I get it, I get that. But there are those who you come in contact with that are actually giving money, called giving circles. But you're moving from the $11 billion that moves through all kinds of organizations to that infrastructure that supports the local community. Talk about giving circles and other strategies that you've uncovered or discovered in the way of advancing Black philanthropy.
So giving circles are basically a way to bring a group of people together to discuss and decide where a pool gift goes. They support with their dollars, but it also helps build awareness, volunteerism, people become board members, advocates, and these individuals are multiplying their impact and their knowledge. They're having fun, building community, connecting with others. So it's really a way to create the change that you want to see in the world collectively. It builds on the idea that you don't have to be a millionaire to make a difference. It's very people-centered and it's very trust-based. And one of the things that I want to mention about, I think, the obstacles to philanthropy and philanthropy in the Black community is trust. Trust and representation. There is something called trust-based philanthropy. And some of the tenets of trust-based philanthropy are things like not having you fill out a full, 10-page reports, trying to get data that's keeping you from actually going out there and doing the work and providing the services, getting to know you as a person, as more than the organization, more than the structure, the people, the communities that you are actually serving, getting to know them, the needs that they have as people, not just as data, not just as a number. It's also multi-year funding. So not just, it takes so much time to fill out a grant. I get a lot of nods in the room, right? It takes a lot of time to fill it out. So if you are spending your time filling out a grant, not receiving a grant, then you are keeping yourself from providing those programs and services. So if you're providing multi-year funding, that really helps organizations to keep their sustainability. The other thing about trust-based philanthropy is the idea of general operating support. A lot of funding goes to specific programs and services when we're not giving the nonprofits the foundation that they really need to succeed as businesses. And what do I mean by that? I mean by supporting your staff, so the staff can have living wages, infrastructure, computers, technology, all the things that they need to actually do their business and continue moving forward. There's a lot of, we wanted to go towards this and we don't trust that you know exactly where the funds should go within your organization. So the more trust-based philanthropy that we can promote, the better.
So thank you very much. So everybody in the room, you know how much money is in your checking account? Or do you? Unfortunately, it scares some people. You only do. And you know how much is in your savings account? Your equity in your home, your 401k, your wealth account. You have a stock portfolio. You know how much money you are worth. You should know that. If you don't know that, it's a great exercise to know how much you're worth, not only in your self-esteem, but also how you are on your own personal balance sheet. You hear me? But banks play a key role in ensuring that how I see my money, how I use my money is used in the best way. You may give advice on how I can better see philanthropy in my home as a result of a bank. So Christoper, talk about what you do, your BayFirst, and how your bank supports or can advance Black philanthropy.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your earlier question, some of the hurdles and obstacles we face, you have to be on both sides, particularly with corporate philanthropy. If Terri's got any support and she's going to DMA, people that she knows that probably don't look like her, right? She goes to BayFirst. I'm the senior vice president over there. We have a community engagement officer who's African-American as well. That's part of it. And if you work for an organization, right, your employer, it's your responsibility to say, hey, I should be supporting, or we should be supporting the Woodson Museum, right? Leverage your employment with your employer to get those dollars to those Black organizations, right? You're there for a reason, you need the paycheck, but leverage you being in that institution, especially been there for a long time. Hey, we should support this. Okay, maybe it's $1,000 to start here and they have a good experience. The next year it's $2,000, next year it's $5,000, who knows? Start small and leverage you working for that company. Outside of that, just finance in general. We know Black community and the church go hand in hand, right? That 10%, it's got to go to the Lord, right? Or else, you're in for a bad 2 weeks until the next paycheck. Right? Isn't that how it works? Yeah. Yes, church, and the first fruits. We are already wired to allocate our funds in a certain manner in the Black community, right? We're wired, 10% has to go to somewhere else, right? Even if we're not the best at budgeting, right? Those that may struggle with paying. We can find a way to carve out that 10% for giving to whoever our spiritual leader is. You can do the same with the philanthropic. Doesn't have to be 10%, it can be another 5%. It's not hard to rewire your brains. I get my paycheck, 10% goes to my Lord, my God, and another 5% goes to the Woodson Museum. Every paycheck. It's just that simple.
Every picture.
And that makes it, but think about that. We laughed at that and that seemed extreme, but you're already doing it for your spiritual Lord, your God, whoever you worship, most likely. And that's not shocking to give 10% to the Lord, right? It's something that we agree that we should be doing, wherever you serve. So when Terri Scott says you have 5% every paycheck, it's funny, but it's not funny. It's a reality. We can and we should be doing that in the same manner, right? So that 10% increases to 15%, so you got 10% that goes to the Lord, your God, and the 5% goes to Terri Scott at the Woodson Museum. And you can see that in the work that that's doing. So 5% over the course of 5-10 years, think about all of us in this room. If we all did that and all those dollars, and I'm just promoting Terri Scott because I love her and she's up here, but that's that collective dollar that Leigh was talking about as well. That's how we have to approach it differently. It's a collective dollar. And consistency, consistent funding, consistency and collective effort is how we gain traction on the other people that are donating as well.
Excellent thing. Anysia, you have a response. I see you want to lead right into this one. Anysia, what's your response? Anything you want to share? Deepen or spread wide?
So I am equally of the belief that you, first and foremost, with philanthropy and giving, you give where is meaningful to you, right? We allocate to the things that we care about. At the end of the day, we give to the places, the things that we are passionate about. So historically, in the African American community, we did give to our church. We learned about that 10%. Fraternal organizations, sororities and fraternities that were so critical to the Black community, those were places that built up the Black community. But in addition, there are now museums and all these other institutions that, yes, you can give to. But getting back to the giving circles and collectives and talking back to the Susu, when we come together around anything, there is power in that. That is a giving circle. Giving as that collective is so critical to making true change. And that can be in the form of $35, $25. When my family came to this country, they did not have much. And so that pooling together of aunties and friends in the neighborhood is what they did. That was their giving circle. And similarly, youth today are doing the same thing. So, my interpretation in terms of like the 10% or the 5% is whatever is truly meaningful to you. For some, they can't give 10%. So I'm not contradicting what you're saying in that 10%, but that may not be a realistic thing for a lot of families, right? Giving for them could be taking care of auntie down the road. Giving for them could be, well, I can bake something and give. Giving for them could be, well, I'm gonna volunteer here and there. That is all philanthropy.
We're gonna go to Q&A here in a minute. If you have questions ready, I'm gonna pass the mic. Terri has been, in terms of success right now, probably the most successful philanthropic campaign on the books of our city is the campaign you launched some 3 years ago for the College of Woodson in either this space or the Leigh Museum downtown. You've got some success there. You want to respond about that success or something else you want to share right now? But you are right now, I cannot think of another person of color that has achieved what you have achieved thus far. So salutes to you, first of all, but talk about how you got there. What have you learned so far that this audience could benefit from your wisdom?
I'm truly grateful for this opportunity. And I want to say I'm a little bit embarrassed that we keep using the Woodson as the example because we have so many other extraordinary not-for-profits within our community. However, I'm not going to shy away from the success that we have been able to amass in this space. And I can tell you unequivocally, it lends itself to selling the product. We talk about giving, and there's a difference, too, I want to be clear, between charity and philanthropic giving. Because when we think about charity, we're giving for that immediate need. When we're talking about philanthropic giving, we're talking about long range. And with that, the commitments that we need to ensure whatever project it is you're working on, it can't be a one and done. You gotta make a commitment to whatever that thing is and stay with it. The Woodson has been successful. We hear all over the city now, why are we doing a block museum? We need a grocery store. My commitment has been to a museum. If your commitment is to the grocery store, I applaud those efforts. But my concern lends itself to whatever it is. Your assignment is to stay focused. If we have a grocery store, should we not have a museum?
Right.
Should we settle for a thing versus all the things our heart desires? When we consider, I never thought I'd be in the space, first of all, because I went to the city and asked for a museum. And that was several years ago. I anticipate me going there, like I've seen so many others, say what we want, say what they want, and get it. But instead, they said, okay, here's some land, go fundraise. That was problematic for me because we have an airport that the city built. And I don't have a plane. We have a marina, and I don't have a yacht. We have a Coliseum where folks love the ballroom dance and a hobby theater where folks enjoy the opera. We built a baseball stadium and didn't have a baseball team. But that was the desires of just a few people for what they wanted in this field. So I didn't think it was far-fetched to say we want an African-American museum with the anticipation of the city building it. But instead, the least of us were once again told, if you want it, you need to build it. I'm saying all of that to say, it's going to take all of us to ensure that the things that we want, that we not only demand it, we've got to participate in making it real. The giving element has to be a continuum, not a one and done. So think about it, that each one of us pledged $5. $5. 276 residents of the city of St. $5. That's 1.3 billion or something. And if we did it for 5 years, just $5. So I'm saying to you about giving in the sense of what you can afford to give. It's philanthropic, but it has to be unfilling. It can't be the one we do.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Start from my Canadian.
I'm gonna go a few minutes. Well, you got 1 more minute after he's finished, then we'll go to the audience. Is that okay? That's fair? Yeah.
Do you remember March 2022? Sorry, March 2020, I should say. We woke up, we went to bed beautifully that night. We woke up and then they told us a statement we've never heard that was gonna change our lives. We can't go out, we can't see our loved one, can't hug our moms, stay away from grandma, might kill her. It was frightening, right? And while we were all, for the most part, cooped up in our home, there were black-led organizations delivering groceries, delivering PPE, and checking on grandma, making sure people had their medicine delivered to them. That our kids were taught, Black teachers were volunteering through Zoom to teach. What I'm describing is the safety net, the frayed safety net of Black communities. Far too much, far too often, we fall through the cracks. You can't depend on public institutions that don't give us fair access or full access we're entitled to. And these Black organizations were the ones that were there to ensure we didn't fall prey. And on every small metric that we look at, Black folks are either recovering slower than anyone else, or either actually worse off. Right? And so the question becomes, as I said, this isn't about morality to me, it's about common sense. We need a safety net when the safety net doesn't work. And what philanthropy allows is the investment in that safety net. So to me, I think about folks, and when folks say to me, why should I give? This is when I say, this is not about giving to return. It's about appealing to your own self-interest. We all at one point or another will need. And if you don't, you already know the Black tax. You're spending what you have on those next to who need. Right? If we don't invest in the food bank, brother's gonna come see you for that $50. Right? And I'm not making, I didn't even make a joke of it. The point of the matter is, we all fundamentally understand the challenges we face. And philanthropy is just one aspect of that. And for those of us who think this is a big ask, the United States of America pays $100 billion in remittance to Africa. People of African descent are already giving $100 billion a year back home. That's philanthropy. Imagine if that was local. Imagine if we could take some of that here locally, right? This is why I really appreciate your point, brother. We're already giving. It's about how to direct the giving. And let me appeal to your selfishness one little more time. We arrived here as delegates to Canada because something magical is happening in St. Petersburg. We were each given $700-something to arrive as a part of our per diem. We've already spent a lot of that here in St. Petersburg. Going to Black restaurants, right? Trying our best to serve and invest in the Black community. When you build that, we'll be back. So will many others. When I come, I'm going to stay at a Black hotel or a Black Airbnb. I'm going to eat at a Black restaurant. I'm going to do something that vitalizes the Black community. It's about investment, right? It's about, again, giving back what you've given. So I really want to rephrase the language as giving, because when you give, there's someone who thinks that they have your hand out. The person with your hand out is you. Get me? What you give yourself, my friend, in Islam we're told, a donation never leads to poverty.
We're going to take just like 30 seconds each to wrap up your points of view, do your share. I'm going to go to the audience and ask the mic for Q&A. Is that okay? Okay, starting with Anysia, and then go down the list, 30 seconds each, and then we'll go to the audience. Get your questions ready, please.
When Jagan approached me about this panel, one of the questions that she had asked was around the beyond giving circles, but how do we come together? How do we look at collectively coming together to support local nonprofits, and in addition to support each other? How can we collectively come together as a community to make impact? And I'm excited to see what is next. But, my brother who just come from Canada, you are seeing what is happening in this community. You are seeing this community and the Black community starting to come together, in my opinion, and I've been here 10 years now, and galvanize in a way that I've never seen before. And that is also coming from having leadership that looks like us, that can represent us in those rooms, that can talk to our community and our roots directly, because they're not, and nothing against us transplants that have come here, but they have the roots in this community and know they are listening to the community. So we are, I believe, at the precipice of a true catalytic movement. Something is happening, something is churning right now in St. Petersburg, and it is incredible. We've just welcomed the first Black female president of the Pinellas County Urban League in however many years.
46.
We have 46 years. We have our first Black female president of St. Pete Community College, the first Black female president of a local foundation. Like, there is an incredible turning and a movement of wrongs right being happening in this community. And the way that we can make those wrongs right is to come together, is to listen to one another and not to backbite on one another. There is enough pie for everybody. We can all benefit, all of the causes and the nonprofits. And it would behoove me to not speak to all of the nonprofits that are here. We must figure out how to work as a collective. We have got to stop duplicating efforts and say, if you are doing this, how can I help you do that? We don't have to be all things.
I just want to recap some tangible things. Leverage your employer for corporate giving, right? If you can't do it from your own pocket, make them do it from their corporate giving, right? You're there for a reason beyond your paycheck. Second is stretch yourself. If you're already doing that 10% or whatever you're donating to other causes, add another 2-3% and find a Black-led organization to donate to. It's possible. You do those two things. Those are tangible takeaways for you. And last, I'll do a shameless plug because our new executive director walked in, and I haven't been plugging the organization that I'm on the board of, which is a nonprofit that was founded by a Black man. It's an art gallery, Studio 620, downtown St. Petersburg. Been there for nearly 20 years. And it was important me being on the board. It's founded by a Black man, still run by a Black man, but there were no Black board members for me. So when it came to the decision of who replaces him, there was conversation. And I'm so glad that I decided to stretch myself and join that board because those conversations became easier. Now, she's well qualified in her own right, so I'm not the reason, but I'm glad I was in that room to make that happen. So I say all that to say the studio at 620 is a worthy organization to support as well in the arts. It's a Black-led organization. I don't know if it's official yet, so I'm not going to call her out if you can or cannot, but she's in the room, so find her as well. But thank you.
Okay, Leigh, 30 seconds.
Philanthropy is about the intergenerational transfer of ideas and wealth and impact. And this is a way for us to teach our youth and to get them involved. Ask them what they are worried about, what they're concerned about, and have them put a part of their allowance or, even their time, their talents, the people that because kids they'll even do something. So if they are talking to you about why are we supporting this, so encourage your children to be a part of that. Look at it as a way to be legacy building. The other thing I want to say is why philanthropists aren't doing it because they're got big hearts. They're doing it because there are tax savings. Not only are there tax savings, but there are tools, wealth-building tools of philanthropy, like charitable gift annuities, like retained life assets. Did you know that you can give your house to a nonprofit? You can stay in that house. You can get a tax break on the value of your house. This is what a retained life estate is. Same thing with charitable gift annuities. You can give to a nonprofit and then that money is invested, right? That's what happens. We're giving it to these banks and to these community foundations, and they are investing this money. That money, when it makes interest, that interest can come back to you. It can come back to your children. So they're not doing this because they have big hearts. They're doing it because, oh, wait, I can get a tax break right now. And then you mean 20 years from now, when that money has been invested and that interest equals the same amount that I put in the first place, then that money is going to come right back to me, right back to my family. So let's think about general and regional wealth building.
Excellent, excellent. Terri.
Thank you. This has been an extraordinary opportunity for us to share in this space, but I'm going not to stop here tonight. Leigh and other members of this panel, You have what this audience needs. And we're talking about teaching how to make those investments, teaching how to create a sense of giving where it benefits us all. This has been good, but I don't think many of us have learned tonight what we need to do. And with that, we would love to be this host location so that these conversations can continue, where others will begin learning and understanding. So thank you for your vision. I pray that you'll continue with this vision. I pray that all of you will remain engaged and that you will come back with my friends with you, that we can continue this conversation. Thank you all so much.
Final word from you, my brother, candidate, 30 seconds, please, went back to the audience, questions, Rick?
I want to go back to the question they asked. Why are we not building money today? There's some tangible things we can do. If you don't know how to register or haven't registered a 501c3 or are thinking about it, please reach out to a trained lawyer. We can think about how do you cover that cost? That's number one. Number two, if you're not connected to a Black fundraiser, please go connect with a Black fundraiser. Number three, philanthropy might be a green word, but it's Black word. So I've been doing it. There's lots of value here, and my sister Leigh said it best.
You hold the mic up a little bit more, because you had a nugget just then that was powerful. Philanthropy, it says what now?
I said philanthropy might be a Greek word, but it's Black work, right? And so I think it's really important to go back to Lee's point. When you give $100 and someone says they're going to give you 65% of that back, right? And you get to make your community better. That's what white folks have been doing. We can get to the economics of the endowment, which is when you give $1 billion, hold on to it, only give 5%, make 15% on the economic return, and then launder your reputation through that. But that's a different conversation.
All right, very good. So go ahead, Chris, my camera. So the floor is open now for questions from anyone in the audience. Yes, sir, I can run around to you. Because this is called Phil Donahue stuff. It's not over. Some people do. Who remembers Phil Donahue? There you go.
Hello, Mr. Manager. I run a nonprofit very all in the state of Florida. I do think that there's a plot to this because we've been talking about how to be philanthropic and pool money to give to what, right? There are nonprofits here that are curious about how can I get the money? And we're talking about how to give, which is important because it's a start. We talk about that. So my question is to the panel, how important is brand management and evidence of success in your decision making when you decide to give money to some of these nonprofits?
Great question.
And you know what's interesting about that question, and thank you for asking. We can't afford it. Everybody else can fail, but African Americans can't fail. We can't afford to fail. And with that, it's held against us forever. We make investments in church every Sunday. And I'm gonna be quite honest with you. Where's the return? Where is the return? Because we make this investment and we've been making this investment for years. And we're still at the building fund. We're still not feeding the hungry. We're still not providing housing for the homeless. But we make that investment religiously. So to your point, the question remains, we're making the investment blindly. That's right. With no evidence.
And no interest on the dollar.
No interest on the dollar. And I, trust me. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Antonio, you're in the room, so I hope you don't mind if I use you as an example. Antonio runs the Barbershop Book Club, 501(c), great organization. So to your question about brand management, I have a personal relationship with Antonio. He said, hey, I want to do this thing called the Black Excellence Summit. It'll be run through the Barbershop Book Club. We're going to have financial literacy, these different courses, education. We're going to have a gala. Like, great, sounds good. How much you need? So who was the first one to write a check for your Black Excellence Summit?
BayFirst Bank.
BayFirst. That's all it's taking. So I think not to brag on our bank, I'm bragging on the personal relationship that Antonio and I have. A lot of times, yes, we need to be professional. We need to have, our 990. We need to have all that on the website. But you gotta have relationships with people that you're asking for money, right? We're behind the 8 ball already. So you gotta know the people at these banks, these organizations that you want the money from. That's gonna supersede anything that you can put together in a package. If I know you personally, I trust your work, I trust you, I'm gonna say, hey, bank, we gotta cut a check for Antonio. He's doing this Black Excellence Summit. Okay, has he done it before? He's done it once. Let's do it again. Let's write the check. It's just that simple. So relationships are equivalent to all of your packages and your debts and things like that. Make sure you're making relationships with people before you actually need their funding.
Anysia, do you have a comment before I go any further?
I would echo that. I think the data is important, the brand is important, right? Those relationships with the donors, I think for me, if I'm passionate about your organization or you're coming to me as a funder, come to me, tell me about invite me into your doors, invite me to be hands-on, to spend a day volunteering in your mission. And then you'll see if our values align. Alignment in values is critical. And you want the people that are investing in you to be in alignment with your values.
Thank you all so much for this. My name is Vanessa Lipsey, and I have the pleasure of being the president and CEO of the Regional Arts Commission in St. Louis. And thank you for hosting me today. 2 quick comments and a question for the panel. I try to keep in mind no data without stories and no stories without data. Because oftentimes the numbers, you can put a bunch of numbers up without the context, doesn't mean much to anybody. So that's 1. And then 2, as philanthropists, we have the opportunity to change how this game works by what we require. And so as someone who has an application that went from 20 questions down to 9, I'm hoping to get us down to 1 question. As you give money, others will see, oh, we got money from this giving circle and the application was 1 question long. There was no reporting requirements, right? So we have an opportunity to change how other philanthropies work when we organize and set the table for what we know is important. So that was just a quick comment. Question, in honor of Afrofuturism, can you share what St. Petersburg will look like 50 years from now?
Chicago. I'm scared right now.
What will be different 50 years?
Good question. What will be different 50 years from now in St. Petersburg? Afrofuturism.
I'll take that, I guess. That's a tough one. What I hope is that, Black population continues to move to St. Petersburg. I'm from Atlanta. It's interesting for me, people say, why are you moving? You moved from Atlanta? And I get this weird look like, why not? Why would I not be here? Or even like we have our first Black mayor. It is an uproar to even have anyone other than a Black mayor in Atlanta. They were right. I can't remember, I was a child. I mean, one lady that was not Black and she ran and got close, they were going to tear the city down. So it's a different thinking. 50 years from now, what I'm confident to say is that Black people in St. Pete will have a lot of seats at the table. There are a lot of younger people, seasoned people is what I'll say, that are making their way to the table of decision making. Yes, we have a Black mayor, but there's a lot of rungs in between the mayor and, employees in different boards, right? You got to be in all rungs of the ladder to really make a difference and lift everyone up. You got someone at the top someone down here, there's a lot of steps to get to there. So you have to, I see now there's a lot of people moving up those rungs of the ladder where, just an example with Antonio, I can make a decision unilaterally without having to go to anyone else, and he can get support for his event, right? That's a very small thing, but think 10 years from now, where I'm at, what I'm able to do then, and think what Antonio is able to do as his organization grows, right? So I see it right now just being at the ground level, and I'm seeing, Anysia and the great work that she's doing, and I just see this, and Hillary and the Green Book, but there's a lot of great young people that are doing great things and that are rising in this community. And I'm encouraged 50 years, I'm just thinking 10 years from now, but 50 years from now, this place is gonna look
The
totally.
gas plant project is gonna turn the whole world around.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Brother, right here, you had a question, sir? Do you have a question?
Been here 40 years plus, seen a lot of changes. This is exciting. But the church illustration is paramount. 25 years ago, the first Black organization doing economic development, I was the executive director. We did some research. 20 million in plate money alone from 50 to 60 Black churches. This is St. Petersburg, 25 years ago. Where's that money going? What would it take for experts like yourselves to make the approach and make the pitch to churches so that they understand what they have and what the potential is for real growth in this kind of giving? What would it take for all of you to participate in doing that?
Let's start with Terri. You had opening comment, so what do you think of that?
I've made that appeal on behalf of Woodson. I reached out to more than 100 churches, asking these churches to just identify one Sunday. Just one Sunday, take up a special offering where we're investing in life's church. Know how many responses that? 0.
30?
That was several years ago. I think that we've progressed to a place now that if I make that appeal, I'll have a better response. But to the point regarding Afrofuturism, with regards to what I'm hoping to see in 15 years, is that we will recognize the value of working together. I'm hopeful too that it won't take 50 years for that to happen. But what's critically important is that those of us who are sitting in the room, that we recognize the need to release the baton. Many of us are taking the baton with us to the grave. We've got to let it go. We've got to assume roles of mentorship, and we've got to do a better job of bringing folks along with us and not leaving them behind.
For me, I think that the future, of St. Petersburg, and I think how we do that is really introducing the concept of giving circles. Because the thing that giving circles do is it allows a sharing of information and it allows a choice among the people who have decided to give their money. We feel like we don't have a say, that we don't have power, that we don't know. We want to do something, but we don't know what to do. We don't know where to start. So I think that giving circles are a really powerful foundation for people to learn what nonprofits are out there, what services they're providing, what needs they have, and then for us to choose as a group, this is where we want to put our money today, and have that money go there right away. Not necessarily be saved, but go there.
Question, good, go right ahead. Bonjour.
Good evening. I actually just wanted to make a comment in relation to the church. It's interesting, I just read an article that because of the current political situation with DeSantis here in Florida, that Black churches are teaching. Pardon?
Can we say DeSantis?
I thought so. I'm Canadian. Looking from the outside in, right? That Black churches are actually teaching Black history in the churches. So it's an interesting time, I think, to revisit that conversation because, to your point, do we need to do what others are doing? If there is a Black museum that is here in Florida that needs investment, as opposed to the church, if the church is now using its body and its group to advocate in this way against the policies that exist, why not say, let's support the growth of the actual museum here to be able to ensure that Black history is available at a large scale. So it's just interesting that when you said that, I just sent that article to him like the other day. And said, I wonder how they're gonna do that. So maybe time to revisit that.
Well said.
Can I have just a quick comment on that, because I thank you for sharing that. One of the most incredible things that I have seen happen in the last year here in St. Pete is the rebirth of the Freedom School from the Civil Rights era. And this is coming from an African American, the ASALA organization, the African American Society that's committed, started by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, committed to preserving African American history. And so the community has said, you don't want to do that, Baltimore? Cool, we going back to our roots. We will do it as a collective, and here at the Woodson, we host the Freedom School. So it is upon us to say, okay, we're not gonna rely on you. We'll do this at home. We will do this at home. And that gets back to the giving circles, gets back to community, gets back to collective. So Afrofuturism, 50 years from now, I would love to see the juices, this community corridor, reborn, rebirth. I believe it's coming. I would love to see our administration and our schools reflect our student population. I'd love to see our legislators reflect our population. Locally, it's starting to happen, which is great. 50 years from now, I'd love to see urban communities all have an edible peace pouch. I would love for the youth to all have a say in what is happening with climate action, because that is upon us now. And it's not going to be 8 years from now. I think it's going to be sooner. And as Floridians, and we've got to be paying attention. That's what I would love to see. I believe we're going to see that in our youth. Some movement around climate action and justice in our communities, for sure.
Outstanding. I want to
And
ask
public life.
what Nathan Frank with a comment to that. Can you hear me? Question back there.
I wanted to respond. I've been thinking, can I let this one go? I just couldn't. I think it's quite unfortunate that folks are thinking about solving complex problems, are thinking about how to market themselves to get money, thinking about brand. You're not a marketing company, you're not Nike. I think it's quite problematic that we're trying to tell folks how to set up the right brand to get money in places like Vancouver, Canada. There are foundations like the Foundation for Black Communities, they have about $2 billion. They don't even apply for you, you don't even apply for grants, they literally just send you a check. And you just say like, oh, I got $20,000, right? It's possible to do exactly what you want of them. Trust-based philanthropy, the homework isn't yours, the homework are those with money. If you're built off foundation sitting on capital, it's your job, your staff get paid. Go out there and find out who needs the money and connect to them. You don't get to sit on your ivory tower and say, let me line up, ask, no. No, that's an absurd way to do things, right? So to your point, it's not radical to believe that, hey, you're doing incredible work and I think you need this money, here you go. Like, so I think one thing that you could do is maybe send some articles of how other better practices are being formed to these funders. That's data. Other thing that I want to comment is, I had a professor who once taught me about the term phantom echo. It's a thing we all say but no one understands. Data is a 4-letter word that's taken over our lexicon. First they told us, prove to me it's needed. Now we're being told, give us the data to prove that it's needed. Look outside. Right? I'm concerned that we're accepting the goalpost being moved every single time. Please, don't just accept, push back. There's an entirely other movement that says, we don't give a damn about the data you have. We know the need exists. You're doing good work. You're trusting you. So you can get into the data squad, not that you can't. Just FYI, I run a data analytics company, all of the data, but not when you're trying to do good, right? If I could just ask Leigh, I'm so, can you talk about trust-based philanthropy just one more time because it's so critical.
Trust-based, yeah, 30 seconds.
So trust-based philanthropy is simply, I believe that you are doing what you say you are doing. And, right, or we'll try, right, exactly. And that's actually really important, right? Because sometimes things fail.
Correct.
And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try, right? One of the things, so at the organization that I used to work with, one of the programs that we have is based upon venture philanthropy, which is, these capitalists out here, they're like, look, if you think that this item, this water, it may be really successful, it may not. I'm going to give you that money. If it fails, it fails. When we think about research, when we think about how we do studies on new medicines and things like that, a failure is not bad. It just means we're getting one step closer to the truth, right? To what's going to actually work. So if we can support that, it may work, it may not work. That's okay.
Thank you. Okay, quick question. Blessings to everyone here. Thank you very much for your gems that you've been giving. As a native here from St. Pete, I'm younger, 26, I'll be 27 this month. I'm an entrepreneur as well, so my main question would be, what would be your main advice as a younger entrepreneur that I want to give back to the community, I want to be a philanthropist, but obviously the main first thing to do is get back in the community, work in the community. What would be your main advice, if it's just like one thing or two, what would be your main thing to do to just get started?
Christoper, you want to respond to that? First of all, are you a banker?
It should be. I don't know what you sell or what your products are.
Polestar.
So, as an entrepreneur, I often, most people, hey, think of in kind. Home decor, I'm on board with Habitat for Humanity. Those homes, we build them, but we do not furnish them, right? That's a partnership for you. I will put my home decor into your Habitat homes, and also that's branding for you because they have ribbon cuttings. So things like that. It doesn't have to be necessarily dollars. It can be in-kind donations for whatever product or goods you sell. Find an organization that can use that product. To plug Antonio again, Barbershop Book Club, they use books. Find books. Buy some books. Donate those books if you sell books, or you're like, I think you partner with different libraries and stuff like that, or bookstores, and find those in-kind donations too. So that's what I would do. If I was an entrepreneur, I would look for, okay, what do I sell and who needs it and how can I donate that in kind?
That is a great connection between your bank and you, my sister with Habitat.
Yes.
Wow, we just built something here today. I want 10%.
Good evening. I just want to say thank you guys so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge. It was very impactful and a confirmation for me that I am where I'm supposed to be. I wanted to share a funding opportunity with you all. So my name is Brittany Frazier. I'm a grants officer at Allegheny Franciscan Ministry. We are a health-based organization funding in Hillsborough and Pinellas County. We have a funding cycle that will become available in January that I oversee. We provide funding for smaller nonprofits that have an operating budget of $2 million or less. Excuse me. And we provide capacity building and general operating dollars for up to $15,000. So if you know of any nonprofits that may be eligible for this opportunity, feel free to connect and reach out to me.
You okay on time?
Yes. We're good.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. One of those Canadian guests. So thank you for having us. I have a comment and a question, or other comment, not so much comment, but something I'm doing that, I won't mind if you steal. My team and I are putting together, it's not shame, I want to be clear, this is not shame, but my team and I are putting together a list of most equitable funders in Canada
that have more than, I believe it's $200 million in their endowment. And so we're putting together this list and we're putting it out to say, these are the funders, the foundations, my apologies, that we're looking at their application process. We're looking at the percentage that goes to certain communities. We're looking at who's on their board. We're looking at what's available publicly and what is not. And the hope is, and I hope you folks can take this, if this is a value to you, you put it out. And again, it's not shame, just information. But you let folks know, especially the people that write the big check, that you can see and that you're watching. And that everyone else can see and everyone else is watching. And that can make a difference. The question that I had is, one thing that I'm seeing really similar to Canada and St. Pete here is that the population of Black people is not quite as big. We're about 3 or 4% of the total population in Canada, Black people. And I'm wondering if you see value in collaboration around like solidarity, because we've seen that in the past in movements for liberation, solidarity across different communities, across borders, across different communities. We see that a lot with Indigenous communities in Canada. And I'm wondering if you see value, or if that starts to muddy the water a little bit when it comes to philanthropic giving and philanthropic these sort of things.
Synergy between the two nations or concepts?
I mean, yeah, going back to the personal relationship thing, wherever you have a personal relationship that can, provide funds, whatever they look like, you should be taking those funds, in my opinion, right? So I feel like in St. Pete, because of the makeup of St. Pete and, Blacks, Caucasians, you got various races kind of, becoming more so as people migrate here. I think you're gonna have to do that. I know we talked about collective giving, but that's for us in this room. But I think when you go outside here, you're gonna have to go outside of your race to make true impact in a short term. Now, long term, when we get to the 50 years, maybe we're self-sustaining in this room. Well, this room don't look there. It'll be at the Woodson Museum. Very big. It's gonna be filled all the way to the back, and then it's a self-sustained effort. But right now, I think you're going to have to leverage people who don't look like you, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, you're supporting the cause that is what is most important, not necessarily who donates to that cause.
Next, are there any more questions from the audience before we move to a closure? Yes, please.
Sorry, Canada has a lot of questions for you. My name is Terri Lindor. I co-founded with this Black Queen right here, who's being humble, the FACE Federation of African Canadian Economics, and we got the historical Black Entrepreneurship Program, $330 million for Black Canadians. I'm selling basically, what is the space for entrepreneurs to understand their role in building their community and not just extracting from it, including our own? And for me, I'm a descendant of the first startup ever in the history of the Western Hemisphere, a startup called 80. And our mission statement was freedom. And we went by it with coupe tête pour les cailles, which meant by any means necessary without being too. Okay. So my responsibility was to become a tech entrepreneur. And then as a tech entrepreneur, I created a platform which matches nonprofits with opportunities based on their unique profile and their objective. So kind of like an online dating app, but matches nonprofits with fundings. We're only in Canada right now, but it's helping Black nonprofits really find, and also leveraging AI to apply for grants by auto-populating it and correcting for grant writing mistakes using LLMs and NLP. My question to you is, what's the space of technology in your strategy? And more importantly, what's the space of AI? Because the Queen right there talked about the future in 50 years and or the collapse in 50 years, because I saw a highway run through your neighborhood, and I think that should, these things come in the 50 years, if climate change is a reality, the first people are going to go are Black folks. So where's the space for technology? More importantly, where's the space for AI and conscious understanding that entrepreneurs need to build their community, not just extract from them.
Our police.
And it's like three questions. I'm gonna start with entrepreneurship and, we're gonna start with small business because small business is such a critical part of our community. I say that and yet and still, there's still a lacking, in my opinion, for small businesses. And so we do have a chamber, but we have a ways to go to providing that soup to nuts, like you have a concept and then bringing product to market, but also having a mentorship during that, pairing up with one another. And there are organizations that are starting to think in that way and build. We're not there yet. I would say the same for AI. We are right behind Miami in terms of our focus in technology, with both sides of the bay. But I think that is a conversation that is like not even really started in this community. But I'm excited. Thank you for bringing it to us. I hope that we can have that conversation.
Public-private partnerships are key. There is absolutely no way that we are going to fix / sustain / thrive without putting responsibility on all of us. And what I see that's missing here in St. Petersburg is our business community. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on nonprofits, there's a lot of pressure on individuals, and there's a lot of pressure on our government. And our government is not made to solve all the problems. They're not the experts. And they don't have the money, the capital that businesses have. So I do think part of what is critical for us as St. Petersans or as Pinellas Countyans is to really hold our businesses more accountable for those who deserve the accountability, but also to invite those who maybe have not felt like they can really make an impact, right? To invite you to the table, to be a part of solving the solution, providing the solution.
Last comment, 30 seconds.
There are over 9,000 foundations in the United States of America with grant sizes of over $50 million or more. I would challenge anyone to put that list together. That's the challenge. The reason why it's important is you can't ask if you don't know. And once if any of you know one of those funders, if you work at one of those funders, if you know someone who works at a foundation, I have a challenge for you. Tell them to organize a Meet the Funders event. Funders can't fund everyone, but if you make it their responsibility to know you, to know your community, it's more likely that they fund. In 2021, we organized a Meet the Funders event because Foundation for Black Communities can't be responsible for granting all Black people across Canada. So we organized it to say, every time we held an event around grants making, we brought 5 other funding organizations with us. We asked, when is your next granting round? What does a successful grant look like? How much do you give? Who do you give to? Give us an example of a successful grant that you got. Meet the Funders